All right, you guys. So on today's lesson, we're actually focused on identifying specific features of a graph. More specifically, in this case, we're focused on identifying the x-intercepts, or how many x-intercepts we should be expecting based on a certain solution we get. Now, in this case, that solution, or the term we're going to be working with here, is the discriminant. And I actually want to go ahead and talk about the discriminant. So what the discriminant in this case does, it's actually helping us identify how many x-intercepts the equation, or the quadratic in this case, is going to be having. We do use a formula of b squared minus 4ac, and that formula, or that expression, actually comes from the quadratic formula. So the result in this case you get inside the square root helps us determine the number of solutions, or number of x-intercepts in a parabola. So let's go ahead and take a look at this next thing here. And in this case, this actually talks about how many solutions we should expect based on the type of number we have. Now, the type of number we could get, it could be a positive, it could be a 0, or it could be a negative. So starting off with the first one in this case, if I get a positive result within the discriminant, once again, guys, the discriminant is the expression of b squared minus 4ac. So you do have to identify a, b, and c, which is the leading coefficient, x coefficient, and constant. Use substitution to solve for that expression. And if you get a positive number in this case in your solution, you actually expect two real numbers, which means you should be having two x-intercepts crossing, or in this case in the parabola. So the parabola should cross the x-axis twice. Now, if you get a solution of 0, which means you get a 0 as your answer when you use the expression of b squared minus 4ac, then you actually just have one solution, which means the parabola is only going to be crossing the x-axis at one point. Now, lastly, if you get, in this case, a negative number inside the square root, a negative number, that would actually be a no solution, because you're going to have no x-intercepts. You're just going to have parabolas that are going to be either facing upward or downward, but they're not going to be crossing the x-axis at all. They're not going to be touching this line at all. So let's go ahead and practice in this case, guys. We are going to be finding the values of the discriminant, and then we're going to go ahead and determine the number of solutions. So starting off in this case, I want to go ahead and take a look at this one. Example number 1, it says, what is the value of the discriminant of f of x? And we do have in this case, guys, our equation of x squared minus a 2x minus a 1. Now, I do want to go ahead and find the value of the discriminant, which means we have to use, in this case, the formula of b squared minus 4ac. Now, before I do this, we do have to identify, in this case, our a, b, and c value. A, in this case, is the leading coefficient. The leading coefficient is a 1. It's a number in front of the x squared. Moving on, in this case, we have our b, which is the x coefficient. Usually it's the middle term if it's in standard form, or it's the one that's in front of the x squared. C in this case is a constant. It's a number that's by itself. So in this case, that would be that negative 1. Now let's go ahead and do some basic substitution here. I have a negative 2 squared minus 4 times a in this case, which is a positive 1, times c, which is a negative 1. Now, let's go ahead and simplify this out. Negative 2 squared is going to give us a 4, minus, in this case, a positive 4, because if I do negative 4 times a 1, that's negative 4, and then negative 4 times a negative 1 is going to be that positive 4. So, in this case, that actually gives us a solution of 8. So, in this case, the value of the discriminant is 8. Now, going further to this, because the value of the discriminant is 8, or more specifically, it's a positive number, we should actually be expecting two solutions. Two solutions here. Two solutions. All right. So let's go ahead and check out this next one. Here's the next one. I want to go ahead in this case determine what the discriminant is of an x squared plus a 14x plus 49. So let's go ahead and identify a, b, and c. A is our leading coefficient, which is 1. B is our x coefficient, and C is our constant. All right, so let's go ahead and use the formula for discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac. Now that there is going to equal 14 squared minus a 4 times a 1 times a c. Now, in this case, let's go ahead and actually take out my calculator here, just so I don't make any mistakes, because I can make mistakes too. So let's go ahead and do 14 squared is going to give us 196 minus 4 times 49 is also going to give us 196. So if I do 196 minus 196, this actually gives us a solution of 0. So the value of the discriminant in this case is 0. Now, if we take a look back at what we started off with the beginning, if I get a 0 as my discriminant, I should actually be expecting one solution. One solution. All right. Let's take a look at the next one. And this is actually a couple practice problems. We'll do this practice problem, and then we'll go ahead and leave the next one to you. So in this case, I want to go ahead and determine what the discriminant is. Now, before I check for the discriminant, we do have to make the equation equal to 0. So make equation equal to 0. So I am going to be moving, in this case, this 8 to the other side. So let's go ahead and subtract negative 8 on both sides. That's going to give us a negative 7n squared plus a 16n minus 8. And all of that is equal to 0. So let's go ahead and identify a, b, and c. A in this case is our leading coefficient, which is negative 7. B is our x coefficient, which is 16. And c is a constant. So let's go ahead and use the formula. We have b squared minus 4ac. Now, b in this case, once again, that's a 16 squared minus 4 times an a times a c. So let's go ahead and check it out, guys. Taking out the calculator here. Let's go ahead and see. I have 16 squared is going to be 256. And then I am going to have a negative 4 times a negative 7 times a negative 8. That's going to give us a negative 224. All right, now let's go ahead and subtract these. 256 minus, not multiply, minus our answer. Sorry. Minus 224 is going to be 32. So that there is the value of the discriminant. Because it's a positive number, we should be expecting 2 solutions. So in this case, that would be that last problem. Next problem for you is going to be this practice problem. You do have to find the value of the discriminant and then determine the number of solutions here. Remember, make sure to make your equation equal to 0 and combine like terms.